What up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Heart of a Lion podcast. I am your host, Jay, and you have just stepped into the Lion's Den. If you're a returning listener, then thank you for coming back. Thank you for tuning in again. If this is your first time listening, then go ahead and hit that follow or the subscribe button from wherever you're listening to the podcast, as well as follow the page on Instagram at HoAL podcast. Again, that's at HoAL podcast. So I'm actually feeling really good today in this moment of recording, simply because I am back in my normal studio where I record, where I love to record. I haven't had access to the studio in about a month and a half now. So the fact that I am back in my normal studio and don't have to worry about, recording at home after everybody else has gone to bed or trying to find a quiet space to record, I feel really good. So it feels good to be back, and hopefully I can, be back in this space a little more frequently, so that way I can push out some more content. At the same time, it's also the summertime too. So if I don't push out an episode every week, charge it to the summer and not my heart, and just understand that I am living life and enjoying life. And that's the reason why I'm not putting out an episode every single week, though that is the goal, is to try to put out an episode every single week. So that being said, man, like this last week and a half has been busy, like very, very busy, but it's also been good. I'm going to start with today just because I don't want to forget this moment in time. But there's this young girl who I have encountered at my job. And I deal with a lot of young people at my job. And there's this young person on my job who I knew that she is leaving at the end of the month. And the last time I encountered her, like I felt into my spirit that I should pray for her before she leaves. And I saw her today, and I asked her, I said, "Are you a person of faith?" And she said, "Yeah, but I'm bad." I was like, "I'm not asking." She's like, "Yeah, I just," she's like, "No, now I really only go on like the major holidays, so like 3 or 4." I was like, "I'm not asking any of that." I was like, "I'm really not asking any of that." I said, "I'm only asking because I wanted to know if it's okay if I pray for you." And like her whole demeanor was like, wait, what? Like, you want to pray for me? And she's like, yes, you can. And then I prayed for her, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm not." She's like, "I'm not in it." I was like, "Listen, I'm not here to cast judgment on you. Like in this very moment, I'm only here to pray, and I'm a person who fully believes in righteous judgment. However, that being said, that I do things based on being led by the Lord. And I knew that I was on assignment to pray. Like I was not there for anything else. However the Lord was dealing with her in that moment, that's between her and the Lord. They ain't got nothing to do with me. I did what I was on assignment to do. But to me, it's so interesting how people will assume a certain stance or take a certain stance when you ask them about faith. And I'm not saying anything bad about her. Great young girl. I'm not saying anything bad about her, but just in general, like people, they either get defensive about where they are in life, or they have like an excuse or a reason or justification, or like, yeah, I'm not where I need, like, I get it, but sometimes we just have to allow conversations to flow and see where they go before we, make assumptions about our own selves or assume that the conversation is going to go a certain way. And I think once she realized I'm really not here for that, like it gave her peace of mind, but it also allowed her to, I think, whatever the Lord is dealing with her on or will deal with her on, like, again, like she realized like that's between her and God, ain't got nothing to do with me. But again, I'm happy that she allowed me to pray for her in that moment. But more importantly, I'm also just happy that I was obedient. just obedient to what the Lord would have me to do. Because sometimes like we'll feel it in the spirit, like we need to pray for somebody or we should approach somebody, and we don't do it because we're like, man, I don't want to do that. You know, because we feel nervous, or just because of us having a bad day, or because the person seems unapproachable or whatever. Like we make reasons or excuses for why we don't do the different things that the Lord would have us to do. So I'm just glad that I was obedient in that moment. But, you know, in the last week and a half, the last episode, you know, I talked again just about processing emotion, and then saying I had a funeral to go to. I went to that funeral at the time of this recording, it was last week. And it was, I will say this, I gained a peace that I would not have gained had I not gone to that funeral, in the sense that I didn't, you know, the guy whose funeral I went to, him and I, you know, we weren't really connected over the last, really in a long time, but there was just peace of mind in knowing that he lived his last days or last years, whatever, being a follower of Christ, and that he was like actively walking that out as far as how he helped others or loved others. So that gave me peace of mind, because had I not gone to the funeral, I wouldn't have known any of that. It was also great seeing a lot of people that I knew, not just people I knew from, you know, school days, because there were a lot of people I knew from school days, but it was also great seeing people I knew from my neighborhood, people I used to see every day. Like all of us used to be outside hanging out at the basketball court, just in the neighborhood, whatever, like talking, joking, whatever. It was good to see all those different people. Even if it was just for a moment, it was good to see them. So it's unfortunate given the circumstances, but you know, it was good to see them. It was good to see them. Which actually reminds me of something else. One of the girls that from, you know, that group that was there, she's actually hosting an adult field day. And it's interesting because it sounds like a lot of fun, right? To have an adult field day for only people above 30. And, you know, it's like based on where you were from, then you wear this certain color, whatever, And I think that that's cool. It sounds good, whatever. But some people were like, do you think that this is a good idea to have all these people from all these different places come together, you know, because you never know how people may be triggered from the past and this, that, and the third. In my mind, like it really like legit wasn't going there. However, with people asking that question, it actually made me not want to go, because I'm like, if y'all are over 30 and y'all are still talking about you concerned about old beefs or different things like that, or based on where people live, I ain't got time, whatever nonsense that, you know, may be going on. And mind you, the girl who's hosting it, like that is not her intention, her mindset at all. But at the same time, like you can't control everybody. So you know, you can have like a peaceful event or try to have a peaceful event. But where I am in life with certain things, if the Holy Spirit don't lead me there himself, I just will not be there. So yeah, man. But yeah, so the day after the funeral, we had a family retreat with my church, and man, it was a great time. It was a great time. What did we do? Played games. We went to the pool, had good food, and then capped it off with a kickball game. And man, I haven't played kickball in 5 years, but I had a whole lot of fun playing kickball. And granted, my team lost, but I still have fun regardless. You know, I just enjoy being active. I enjoy playing sports. I enjoy just, you know, running around and talking trash and having a good time for a couple of hours. And it was a fun time to be out there, you know, with my family, with a bunch of other families. My daughter, oh my gosh, this little girl. I mean, granted, she already needed to have her hair washed anyway, but she was playing in the volleyball sand. She had sand all in her hair, but she had a good time. And I love to see her having a good time with other little kids her age or around her age range. And, that's what it's about. Summertime, you don't need to be cooped up in the house. You don't need to be on a tablet or a phone playing games or watching movies all day. Like, get out there, play in nature, play in the sand, do whatever. Just, have a good time. And the next day was Father's Day. And this past Father's Day, honestly, genuinely is probably the best Father's Day I've ever had. Just in a sense that, we went to church and then, a few of us dads got together. My dad, my father-in-law, my brother, and one of my cousin's husbands, we all got together and we had a fish fry. And, fried fish, fried fries. And then my sister-in-law made what did she make? A pasta salad. My mother-in-law made some baked beans, and man, the food was so good. Played Uno, played jacks, played dominoes, and we just had a great time. It was a great few days, a great way to spend the Father's Day, a great way to end the weekend. And I know my kids were worn out. I know my wife was worn out. I know I was worn out at the end of the week. But it was a lot of fun spent with family, a lot of fun spent with friends. And I mean, for me, like, that's what, in general, like, I'm a big family person. But like, that's what summers are about to me, spending time with family and friends, traveling. Though I haven't been able to travel as much as I would like to, but just, getting out the house and doing different things. Though some days it feels like hell hot and you just don't want to be outside, but it's still good to get out the house and really enjoy yourself, regardless of what you do. So that's what's been going on. I found out the other day, or maybe it was just yesterday, really, but found out that June is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. In my mind, I'm like, why don't we put like a bigger spotlight on this? Just because mental health is important. It's very important. And I'll say we talk a lot more about it now than we have in years past. Because people going to therapy, talking about therapy wasn't really a popular thing or the popular thing to do. You may be looked at like you were crazy if you talked about you had a therapist or anything like that. But mental health is very important. And I would definitely say it's not more important for a man to have mental health, or it's not more important to talk about men's mental health than it is women's mental health. I will also say it's very imperative and important for men to talk about their mental health. And I say that because a lot of men compartmentalize a lot of different things. They internalize a lot of different things, and they don't talk about what's going on with them. They don't talk about what it is that they're going through, how they're feeling, what they've been through, how it made them feel when they went through different things. And a lot of it is because of, how they were raised. They were told to toughen up, or, don't cry. You're a boy, don't cry. Girls cry, boys don't cry. Man up and different things like that. Or, they're forced to be the man at a young age. And, for a variety of different reasons, men just don't open up. And I think, we're finally at a point where we can just, in a healthy way, talk about ways that men can open up and share their thoughts, share their emotions, share what it is that they're going through, what they've been through. And not only that, but just create safe spaces for men. And sometimes, the thoughts do come along where you're like, man, I feel like I just in this moment, I don't feel like I have anybody to talk to, or I don't feel as though there's anybody who will listen, or I don't feel as though anybody who will understand, a variety of different things. There are certain there are many different things that, I can talk to my wife about, but there are some things like, man, I just need another man to like really hear what it is that I'm like trying to say, or what I'm processing, whatever. Just because like men understand each other better. Like I can talk to another husband about certain things. I can talk to, another, leader about certain things, like on a man-to-man level that sometimes, may not be conveyed or understood the right way if I'm sharing it with somebody else. But like that man-to-man connection is like we get each other. But again, it's getting other men to a point of understanding, and like, how do we understand each other? How do we get each other to open up? How do we, talk about different things? How did I get to this point? And, even though like I'm still working on it, like, and just not, going into a show or compartmentalizing things, like what helped me get to a point of just being able to open up about various topics is, one, I just learned how to be a friend. Being a friend and just like listening to other people. And because it allowed me to listen to other people, then eventually, certain people will say, well, hey, what's going on with you? And then, you share about or you hope you share anyway about what's going on with you. And if I'm being honest, probably my friendships with women, and just when I say friendships, like I genuinely mean friendships, but my friendship with women, so I should say girls growing up, allowed me to learn how to share about what I was feeling or what I was dealing with. And then as I was a young Christian, there was one of the guys at the church who I would be able to have conversations with and talk to him about different things that I was going through, and just be able to process my thoughts, my emotions. And before I got married, or even before I met my wife? Not before I met her, but before we started dating, there was a Bible study that I had started going to, and I went for a couple of years. It was a men's Bible study, and a lot of what I learned as far as like opening up and breaking things off and cutting things off, processing emotions and all that was from that men's Bible study. Granted, where I was, like, not comparing myself to anybody, but I was in a much better place than a lot of those guys were. However, I still learned a lot from being at this men's Bible study. And it's imperative that us as men, again, we have an outlet, we have people that we can talk to, we have, we healthily, or in a healthy way, process our emotions. Like I don't ever want to process my emotions out of anger. Meaning like there are people who process their emotions by, I guess, rage rooms are all the rage, no pun intended, but they're all the rage these days where people want to go to a rage room and get, break stuff to get things out. Like I've never been that type person to want to break stuff to process my emotions. Like I don't need to do that. For me, like I just want to be left alone when I process my emotion. But like, that's not always the case, especially when you're married or have kids. But understanding just how to process your emotions in a healthy manner, being able to talk about the things that frustrate you, that anger you, or if you've been triggered by something, talk about the thing that triggered you. So that way you can, figure out how to overcome it, so that way it doesn't trigger you down the road. Because there are many things that used to trigger me, and now like they're either an afterthought, or when it comes up, like I just laugh and I was like, yeah, like before, like this would have bothered me, and now I'm just like, whatever. But we have to create the safe spaces. And what I try to do as somebody who is a leader of men's ministry, like I try to do a good job of creating a safe space for men to open up, to be vulnerable, to listen, to grow, to understand, but also be that, in the same thing that I'm saying I'm creating, like I'm also creating the same thing for me. But I have to be able to be, in order for me to get other men to be vulnerable, it means I have to first be vulnerable. Because, a lot of men, they're not going to walk it out unless they see you walking it out. So, yeah, it's just, we see so much toxic masculinity. And some people will say that's not a thing, but truth be told, anything that goes against God, it can be considered toxic. But like, we see a lot of toxic masculinity as far as, you know, what that looks like in regards to manhood and just how a man should be, how a man shouldn't be. If you do this, you're a man. If you don't do this, then you're a B. And, you know, all that stupid stuff. Like, and that's a lot of stuff that I grew up with. But just, you know, you have to learn to find your identity in Christ, but also be content and comfortable with who you are and where you are. You know, I'm not talking about being content in sin or anything like that, but just being content with who God called you to be, but also understand that even though this is who God called me to be, like, God still calls me to grow, to change, to mature. You know, I can't be the same person in 2024 that I was in 2014 or 2004 or whatever. You know, like there always needs to be, like, there is always room for growth. But there's no reason why at 50, you're acting the same way you were at 20. There's no reason why at 50, you're still processing your emotions the same way you did at 20. There's no reason why at 50, you're saying, you know, well, I just, you know, I don't have anybody to talk to, or nobody listens, this, that, the third, You know, if you are a follower of Christ, God has sent you some people for you to process your emotions with. He has himself for you to process your emotions with, you know, but if you're still using that excuse at 50, then you got to really check yourself in the mirror, because again, you know, what I've learned is that when I had nobody else, when I thought I had nobody else, because the enemy will lie to you. But when you think you have nobody else, God is always there for you to talk to. God is always there for you to process emotion with. And for me, again, like this me podcasting is very therapeutic, but there are times when, you know, I just need to process something with God, and I just, like, I might let out, like, there was one day last week, I forget what it was. What was I upset about? I don't even remember what it was about, but I just remember I got in the car and I was like, ah! And then I was like, ah, I'm sorry, God. I just needed to get that out. And I felt so much better after doing it. Man, I felt the peace of God now as I'm talking about it. But just, you know, whatever that emotion is, just process it, but process it with God, you know, or process it with somebody who you know without a shadow of a doubt, like, that God dwells within them. You know, somebody who's going to lead you back to the Father, and somebody who's not going to turn you away from the Father. Because there are people who will try to turn you away from God, and not everybody gives sound advice. Not everybody gives godly advice. So not everybody is worth talking to, in the sense, like, I don't want to say that their life isn't valuable, but your time and what you're going through isn't worth, you know, talking to certain people about, if they're going to steer you in the wrong direction. So yeah. Yes, that's where we are, man. That's where we are. So mental health, again, mental health is important. Men's mental health is important. The mental health for children and women is important as well. You know, and I think that we need to create a safe space for all people to be able to open up, you know, in the same way that I'm talking about men's mental health, women's mental health is important too. Even children's mental health. There was a time recently where my daughter got in trouble for something. I forgot what she did or what I saw her doing. Cause you know, what somebody did and what you saw them doing could be two different things. You know, sometimes what you see could be a reaction, to an action, but you didn't see the action. Or sometimes things can be taken out of context based on what you saw. But there was something that my daughter did, and she got in trouble for it. And she kept trying to talk, and I kept talking over her. When I was finally done disciplining her, and like, she was crying, and I was like, what is it? And she's like, Daddy, I was just trying to tell you and this is the reason why I did it. And like, when she explained what it is that she was doing, that she did, and why she did it, like, it made all the sense to me. And then I had to then go back and apologize to her for not allowing her to have that space to share what it was that she was feeling, or why she did what she did. And so, you know, when I'm talking about creating safe spaces, we have to create that safe space for our children too. You know, I can't just assume the worst because of what I saw. Like, we need to give our children the space to open it up, about whatever it is that they're going through, whatever it is that's going on, that explain the decisions that they made. And sometimes they may not make sense. Sometimes, there's still the punishment that is needed. But we need to provide that opportunity, that grace to be heard, and to just hear where they're coming from. What made you make that decision? Maybe it wasn't as bad as what I thought. Maybe it was worse than what I thought. But I don't know unless I listen. So that was definitely a very valuable lesson. And since then, I've tried to be more mindful of how I process different things, especially when it comes to her, because I need to let her explain. And I don't want everyone her to get to a point where she feels like she can't talk to daddy because daddy doesn't listen, because I know what that's like of like, I don't talk to certain people because I know they don't listen, or not that I don't talk to them. I just don't have certain conversations with them. I don't want her to be like that. I want her to always feel like she can come to daddy. She can come to me for whatever. I may say no, depending on what it is. There may be a punishment, but still you can come to daddy about anything. I want her to feel like that. So we got to create safe spaces. Mental health is important, because when we don't create safe spaces, then people begin to compartmentalize things, or people begin to bottle things up. We don't know how it can affect them mentally, emotionally, or spiritually. We don't know what triggers people sometimes. So we just have to be mindful of that, because everybody has a different story. Everybody has a different background. Though we may have similar stories and similar backgrounds, everybody's story is still different. So, thank you for listening to my TED Talk today. But no, thank you guys for tuning in today. It felt good to, get a lot of that out. It felt good to be back in the studio again. As the summer goes on, I hope to have I hope to have some guests on this podcast. I would love to, get people physically in here in the studio with me, but if not physically, figure out a way to get people on the podcast, because as somebody who does YouTube, or started my creative public platform on YouTube, one thing I've always loved is to hear the stories of other people. So I would love to get other people on my podcast, so that way you can hear other people's stories, as well as I actually recently we talk about men's mental health. I recently had actually asked several men what they thought toxic masculinity is. So I'm compiling all of that together, and then going to do an episode specifically on toxic masculinity, which will kind of be like a part 2 to this, I guess. But anyway, that's it. That's all, y'all. I appreciate y'all. Thank you for tuning in. Have a great and blessed week. Until next time.